Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Pillay, and I am here from Austin, Texas. And I am about to do one of the most amazing things I've ever done, which is reunite with my cousin, Brad Swenson, who is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Brad, let's introduce ourselves separately, and then let's go into a history of who we are. So,
Yeah,
first of all,
absolutely.
yeah, first of all, I'm with the Profitable Happiness podcast. Go ahead, Brad.
So I'm with Watchdog Citizen, actually, and that's also a podcast and video company, news gathering service, let's call it.
All right. Now, here's what's amazing. We build this conversation as two cousins, two Americas. A lot of people would look at me and look at Brad and go, "You guys are cousins? What are you smoking? Can I have some?"
Right? Oh, speaking of which, I apologize. I'm going to put this out there right now. I promised myself that I was going to, if I'm going out, it's going to be with a cigarette and swear words. So I'm going to cut out the swear words for sure. And I'm going to keep the cigarette. So we're going to do this. I have to find a time to be smart about what I'm doing. So this will be the one thing that's going to get me. So, all right. I apologize. Keep going.
Now, for some context, just to give some context, Brad and I have not seen each other for years.
Nope.
I used to live in Minnesota almost 10 years ago. And really, I think we have not seen each other for about 20 years, to be honest with you.
Well, no, so I did visit with you and Junie in Lakeville before you went.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's about
got to play some piano.
Yeah, that's about 15, 16 years ago. Now,
yeah.
Before that, we met for the first time in the early 80s when my mother, who is your aunt, right?
Yes.
Junie.
Yes.
When my mother, who is your aunt, came back to the U.S., and my father, who is a Nigerian, married your aunt, Junie, and we found ourselves as cousins for the first time in the early 80s. Is that right?
The weirdest, but I was young enough to where it didn't faze me, right? Like, oh, more family members, right?
Yeah.
And I had my sister, you know my sister, right?
Yep.
So I have a Korean sister and African cousins. I grew up in such a way, I didn't see anything. Like, it didn't bother me. Like, none of this stuff bothers me. So I didn't even think about, well, we'll get to all these things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's, it's funny because I was thinking about talking to you. One of the things that I distinctly remember, and this has stayed with me since I first met you, is you had your guitar with you.
Yep.
And you played a Phil Collins or Genesis song. Was it was it Billy Don't Lose My Number or Johnny Don't Lose, whatever? You played that song. I can't remember the name on that song, but I remember I know the song, right? Like, it's still in my head. And I remember you playing it for me, and it was one of the most crazy things. Like, I'm 45.
Yeah.
And I remember that from when I was 10.
Wow. And
right?
what's interesting is that you, my friend, have become, in my opinion, one of the most awesome musicians. You play guitar, you play piano. You're just unbelievable.
There's more.
Oh,
yeah. Well, here's part of the surprise. So I just got laid off, and I was a furniture maker. I don't know. Well, you haven't been on Facebook much. So I made very large, expensive tables for a company, and I was the only guy who was doing it. But when I got laid off, I was like, I have to do something that's not going to hurt me.
Yeah.
Because I blew out my back. I had back surgery 3 weeks ago, by the way. So that's going to come into play. But I started up a company that builds guitars.
Wow.
So I am now a luthier. I'll show you some pictures again. So
nice.
And we're doing this real time, guys. We have not connected. So
we have not connected for years. And you know what? On that note, I want to give 2 points of context. First one is a historical one, and the second one is a today one. So whenever you hear this, whatever you see, I want you to know that this is happening right after George Floyd has been killed.
Yep.
A jury has found Chauvin guilty of that. Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, Minneapolis, the world is crazy right now. And the world has been crazy for a long time. And Brad and I have reconnected, and we thought, my goodness, even just looking at us visually and recognizing me from Africa, you from Minnesota.
Yeah.
What you also as a musician, me as a musician, you as a politician,
Yes,
also.
that's right.
Yes,
You remember. You
yes,
remember.
and me as a speaker. I mean, we've sort of been we know what we're doing,
They're,
but we've never talked
they're
about it.
parallel paths in a very odd way, right? So everything that we do is to affect change around us, right? As a speaker, you're trying to give people something that they can build off of
Yeah.
and to learn from and make themselves better. As a politician, which I know, guys, listen, everybody hates a politician. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican, so you can try and hate me, but I promise you we'll have a great argument about it. And one of the funniest thing is, again, I was a musician I am a musician, not a was, but my first recording experience, if you remember that, was with you at the studio you were working at.
Yes.
So when I was still in my teens, my first album was recorded at Funky Town.
Wow, dude.
Think on that.
That's
You got me.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, the start of my musical endeavor wasn't just playing with the band. It was this thing where I could actually show a product, right?
Wow.
It was, now I have a song, right? What do I do with it? Well, we record the song. And I'll bet you everybody else, the rest of in the band would remember the names, but I couldn't remember the guy who recorded. We tortured him. Dude, it was like a 38-hour recording session.
Was it John Fields?
No, he wasn't there, thankfully, because he's actually a good musician. And we were garbage. I can't even listen to those things. Like, it was so bad. But again, you have to make those mistakes, right? Like, you have to go in and go, I'm a musician, and realize 10 years later, like, I really wasn't, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Okay. So Brad,
yeah.
Brad, let's do the historical thing. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask you questions about your history, and then I'm going to answer in response with my history. So we'll kind of do a side by side. So first of all,
Absolutely.
I met you as a very young boy, and we became cousins, and it was magic. But tell us a little bit more about your family. Tell us more about your family. Your mom is an amazing piano teacher and musician. Your dad is one of my favorite people in the whole world. He's my uncle.
Yes.
And you've got siblings. You now have your own family and children. Tell us all about your history and how you got to where you are today, and then I'll do the same.
I suffer from ADHD. So, and this is very late coming in my life. So this is kind of everything that I was is shaped in this weird prism. And we'll start with my parents, because I'm kind of that not perfect. I'm an imperfect combination of my parents. My mom is an amazing artist. She can draw. I can't draw. I'm not a great drawer, or what do you call it? I don't even know what to call
Artist.
it, right? But she's an amazing artist, with music, with drawing and paint, all those things. Like, she has all those things, but she's also a very, very big personality. Okay. And my dad is like this very cool and calm and collected, very honest and very nice guy. And both of them have giant hearts, but he's 6'2", 200 and some pounds, played football. Well, I'm 6'2", 300 pounds, have a very, very big personality. And I happen to be an artist. And I was able to build off this crazy thing, because both of my parents were teachers at one point. My dad's a computer programmer. He did retire. I don't know if that was something you knew. Again,
I did know. I remember. Yeah, they've moved to California. That's another thing.
San Diego. Yep. So we don't get to see I don't get to see my parents very often. But my brother, Hunter, who's actually coming up right now, he's actually going to be here today.
Awesome.
I'm taking him to Brooklyn Center. So.
Oh wow.
Well, we'll talk about a couple of mistakes I made as a father too, which I'll relate, I promise. But my brother has a special need. Mentally, he's okay, but physically, he has some things that affect his motor skills. And it's kind of been a big thing throughout his life, that from depression and being bullied and things like that. Now, again, he was bullied less when people realized who his brother was. And I have no problems standing up as the guy who looks like he might eat your mother is a bully beater, right? I know that I've only been in a few fights in my life, and They've never been because I was angry at somebody and it was just some, thing. It was me defending another person.
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not a violent person. That's not my thing, but you don't get to hurt people.
Yeah.
Like my brother. So I grew up in a very interesting situation because a few years after my brother was my sister, who we already talked about. She was adopted. And so my sister's Korean. She's my sister. I don't think of her as Korean. It's only when I became a teenager and people wanted to bully her. And she has a personality like my mom. And she can handle herself.
Yeah.
But again, I am who I am. And so we've all got very, very different paths. And music was supposed to be my path. Right after high school, I recorded with you, at your studio. Mm-hmm. And I, at some point, had to stop actively being a musician, because I had a daughter born with Down syndrome, which is a whole nother story. She is 18 now. She's graduated high school. She's doing what we call college.
Yeah.
But she has a pacemaker. She had 3 open heart surgery. Well, okay, 2 or 3. It's been a long time. Right after she was born, when she was 6 months, they went in and fixed 2 holes in her heart. And while fixing her heart, they hit the electrical center of the heart, which then made it not work anymore. So by fixing it, they broke it. Wow. And so the next surgery was to put the pacemaker in. So every few years, my daughter's pacemaker just doesn't work. And fear is going to come up in a little bit. Let's be honest. We have some things that we're going to talk about, but fear is a big deal.
Yeah.
I have seen my daughter go into what's called heart block. It's a nice term for saying my daughter dies for 20 seconds.
Wow.
It is the worst feeling you can ever have, because when she falls, her body just stops and she falls to the ground. And when her pacemaker fails, you have to get to a hospital. The thing is, though, we have to get up to Riverside, which is right in Minneapolis, from wherever we are. And every time something happens, when her pacemaker goes, we're in the middle of something where it's just not going to work. The last one was during a blizzard in April, when you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you. And I had to drive the car through a blizzard with my daughter and my wife, on the phone with my mom, because I wanted somebody to be there if something happened to us, right? As we're going there, my daughter is going into heart block every minute and a half, 2 minutes. So she will fall down in the seat and she's gone. And you don't know if she's waking up again. So I've become a little hardened, not necessarily like bitter, just the level to which I feel that I am afraid. That bar becomes pretty high because I've seen it. I've been there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One of the goals for our call, and you actually sent me a text message really early this morning. You said you had been away from things for quite a while, and with all the things happening in Minneapolis, Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center,
Brooklyn Center.
All these things happening, maybe this would be a great time for us to talk. And we wanted to draw a contrast, not only between our lives and our histories, but also with respect to how we both, from wherever we come from, look at the situation in Minneapolis today. And so let me go a little bit into my history, so we can now catch up where we've gotten a bit of your history. Now let's get a bit of mine. So,
absolutely.
One thing I want to make clear for anyone who's listening is I'm an immigrant. I am the immigrant that, that a lot of people in Minnesota, there's a lot of debate about people like me right now. There's Somalis, there are Hmong people.
Hmong. We have the largest Hmong community in the world.
And a huge Somali community in Minnesota, to the point where
Omar.
You have Ilhan Omar, exactly. So I am one of those immigrants, although I'm from Nigeria. So my story started really in the Biafran Civil War in Nigeria. Many years ago, in the late 60s, there was a civil war between Nigeria and a segment called Biafra. during this time, there were people dying everywhere. Millions of people were hungry. I was one of those refugee camp kids, with you've seen those black and white pictures, Brad, with
Oh yeah,
with the kids, the big stomachs and the kwashiorkor,
the
and
Sally Struthers commercials.
yeah, all of
Right?
those things.
You remember
Yeah,
those?
all those kids. I was one of them. Now you
I'm
didn't
not
know
like
me. You
nope,
didn't know me when I was one of those kids. I
nope.
survived that because of many different things. I got lucky, all that stuff. But when you met me was when my father married your aunt Junie, my mom Junie,
Yep, yep.
and brought us to the States. This is actually in the 1970s. I'm not sure if you were born then, but I think I met you
76.
you were born in 76?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm about 10 years older than you,
Yep,
but
yep.
I met you in the 80s, early 80s.
Early 80s. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
now I show up in America early 80s with my mom. My father had died at this point.
Yes.
My father was a doctor, a PhD from the University of Minnesota. He was a celebrated mass communications expert in Africa. He died in Nigeria. Actually, he died in an airplane, if you want to know the
Airplane. Yep.
truth. Yeah, he died in an
A whole
airplane.
nother story, right?
The whole
Yeah.
nother story. He was sick. But when he died, I had nowhere to go but to try to find my way to where my mom and my brother and sister were. So I have a brother. His name is Dean. I have a
Dean, yep.
sister. Her name is Dee Dee. And they are both in Minnesota with my mom, Junie. And I was basically alone. And so I found a way to get myself to America. Luckily for me, as an
Yes.
immigrant, it was easy. My mom basically went to the immigration place and said, "Hey, that's my son. Okay. He's been my son
Right.
since he was 5 years old. I married his dad. Here are the papers." And that was it. So I didn't have to go do anything funny. Okay.
Crazy stuff, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I
Or,
was,
well,
I'm a
yeah.
I'm a lucky immigrant in that sense. So now I'm an American. Um, another thing
How
that
old? How old were you? How old were you
when I
when
came
that
to the
happened?
US,
When you and I met, you were in your teens, right?
I was in my teens. I was probably
Jeez.
1985. What's 1985? That would be, no, I was probably
So
about
I would have
18.
been 9. Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was
would have been
about
9.
18, yeah, 18
Yeah.
or so when I first met you. Now, so what's interesting about our journeys is that I actually came to this country with the love of music. The music was my life. Your mom, great musician, and then of course you, great musician, and your sister, great
Yeah.
she's an awesome piano player too. You guys are unbelievable.
She blows me out of the water.
Oh,
She
really?
blows me out of the water on the
Yeah.
piano. I am artistic. She is precise. Does that make
Oh, that's
sense?
cool. Yes, yes. I've showed up. I've showed up as a musician myself. You know this. I produced an artist called Alexander O'Neill. I worked with
Yep.
Stephen Greenberg and John Fields and all those guys at Funky Town. And by the
Yeah.
way, for anybody in Minnesota, Funky Town is like number one. Okay, big time back then.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, back
Dude, it was
then,
in
you know.
Shrek, wasn't it? That was songs
Well,
in Shrek
Funky Town was everywhere, right?
everywhere.
Yeah. So that was a big deal, and then we connected. I've gone on. I've left music myself, but I still use my music today as part of my teaching and content marketing. By the way, I went on, got a PhD. I'm a doctor, and I followed my dad's education line, and now I own a business teaching and helping people with content marketing, primarily on LinkedIn. Okay, so now we've caught up with ourselves. Now the question is, how do we both see what's happening in Minnesota right now? Let me just tell you before I pass this over to you. I want to say this. I watched all 9 minutes of George Floyd dying, and while that was happening, Brad, I cried like a baby.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm about to. So yeah.
I cried like a baby because I couldn't understand. This is when it just happened. There was no court case, nothing. I just saw a video. I'm like, what? Is this real? And actually, it was real. It wasn't a movie. It was real. And I was like, oh no. When I was done crying, I said, good, I'm done. I've done my thing. I had to do that. I'm good. So I just want to put that out as to how this all started. Now let's go over to you. Catch us up with today and politics and black and white lives and all this other stuff.
So we're gonna go to the day before George Floyd died or was murdered. Sorry, I'm not even gonna say that. He was murdered. So I'm at my cabin talking to my team, my campaign team, and somebody in our party had just dropped out of the race.
What were you running for at that time?
So that's what we're going to get at. So it is for Congress. I was running in CD2, which it's it's a suburban Republican leaning +2 kind of district. But the guy who was at our party who was running against Ilhan Omar just dropped out. So my meeting at the cabin, talking to all my guys in my campaign team, is like, if we're going to make a splash, we've got to take out a bigger target. This seems like 10 years ago. I'm going to be honest with you. I've been through a lot. So we decide to announce on the day George Floyd is killed, and I'm running for Congress against Ilhan Omar. So my campaign run ended very quickly because when Zoe, who's now 16, by the way,
wow,
I brought her down there. Yeah, right. So I bring her down to 38th in Chicago. There's no politicians. There's nobody there except for a man named Rob Barrett Jr., who was actually trying to run for Senate against Jason Lewis for the Republican nomination. So a Republican and an independent are the only two people who are in politics at Chicago and 38th. Okay. Both white men. Okay. And people are very, very angry. And I kept Zoe close to me. And there was a point at which it's been a few hours that we were there. I realized I'm done. Like this, I can't run. There's no way I'm going to be able to run. I can't do this. I have to do something. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I got Zoe out of there. And that as we're walking away, we hear the crowd and the police interacting. And I don't mean talking. I mean screaming and throwing and things that are really bad. And you can hear it just a couple blocks away. And so we hurried to the car and we got out of there. And I kind of went home and just sat in my bedroom with my head in my hands, just going, what the F am I going to do? What is going on? Right. Like I'm tearing up because it was so, I don't want to say powerful, but it was like I had been hit by a hammer in the head. Does that make any sense? I wish I could explain that.
So let me understand that. So I remember you were running for Congress and you in Minnesota. And so I did not know you were running. Well, I guess now I can figure it out. You were running against Ilhan Omar, and you did not know, obviously nobody knew that George Floyd was going to die like tomorrow, but then you decided to announce on the same day he died without knowing it. And then of course the politics of the moment put you, a white man with your beard and your bald head, a white guy, it made you look like the bad guy. Is that what happened?
So that was part of my thought. Let's be perfectly honest. I am not dumb and I'm not observant, right? I recognize that there's a thing about me, and this will actually come up in our conversation, where I don't look like the kind of guy who should be walking down Chicago and 38th.
Of course you do, my friend. My cousin.
Well, now if you were with me, that's my baby
cousin, actually.
If you were with me, now, so perfectly honest, I might have shown your picture a few times. Same with my sister, because you have to be able to identify very, very quickly why you're there, and right then and there. So I did not care about my campaign as I left. I did not. It was it was so much more important to me that I had something else to do, because running for Congress is not going to fix what's about to happen. And you saw the crowd. Politics is long, right? It's long form.
Yeah.
Okay. What was happening was now, right now. There was no time to think. Okay. Yeah. Like I went home, I put my head in my hands, probably cried a little bit, because it was crazy being like, it's hard to explain through a screen what you see, right?
Yeah.
When you're standing right there, you don't like it's.
Were you actually there when it happened, or were you in the crowds after it happened?
I came after.
Okay.
I've been getting calls. People are so. Quick side note, because
Yeah.
of this, actually, it's very pertinent. I used to own a minor league football team.
Wow.
We played in Twin Cities. We actually, our home field for a little while was the Metrodome before they put it down. I had 85% black men on my team. So a lot of the people I had been interacting with for years were people who were like you, like my family, like people who I fought with on the field, who I had to go and help because something, you know what I mean? Like these were my family. So they're all messaging, holy, you know, well, again, I promised you no swearing today. Lots of expletives. What is going on? And a bunch of them went down there, and I'm like, man, listen, if I can help, I'll come down, come pick me up. Whatever it takes, I'm coming. And it was very interesting. Just wanting to fight what had happened when it's a fight that I think is something I have to fight. Like it's, to me, there was no question. I'm going to be honest with you. I couldn't protest though, because again, I'm not that guy. I don't have the Che Guevara, and you know what I mean? Like I don't have that revolutionary in me, right?
You know, we're actually similar that way. And let me tell you why.
Please.
I have a brother, Brock. Remember Brock?
Yes,
I don't know if you met.
I do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a brother, Brock, who you know, he's mixed. He's a mixed kid, right?
Yep.
And he is a revolutionary. Okay. My daughter is actually not a revolutionary, but she's kind of an activist.
Well, there's a distinction.
Yeah, and you know, a little bit of an activist. And so she lives in Minnesota. Brock also has a home base in Minnesota, but he's now in Boston. But the reason I bring them up is I'm not like them. Okay. My view of what happened to George Floyd and to a lot of the things that people would call racial injustice in this country, my view is actually very different.
I figured that, and that's why I've been meaning to talk to you about it. So please,
my view, and I hope I don't offend anyone, but I see myself first and foremost as a citizen of the world.
Yep.
I don't actually see myself as a Nigerian or an American per se. I see myself as a citizen of the world because I have that perspective. So when I see white people fighting against black people, I don't feel like I'm black. For goodness sakes, look at you. You're my cousin. You're white. Look at my mom. She's white. I don't think of myself as black or white. I'm just me. Why? Because number one, I grew up where everyone was black. And then before I got to 5 years old, my mother was white. It's like, you know, how about that for confusion? So I basically don't know how to feel racism. So what I call it is tribalism.
Oh yeah.
My perspective is that all of this is tribalism. See, look, I cannot look at a white person and see the devil or see an evil person the way a lot of people choose to do. I also can't look at a black person and see a thug or a crook the way a lot of people choose to do. I just look at these people and I see people, right? Because of the way I grew up. And so for me,
we both did that though.
So when I listen to you say that you aren't the type to go and start protesting, even though you wanted to, in support of, you know, this injustice, even though you say, I understand that. I'm not going to go out onto the street and do that. My approach to doing that is to speak, to allow others to speak, to be as excellent in what I'm doing as I can be and be a good example. But I'm not going to take up a big war chant and hate everybody on this side or hate everybody on this side. I can't do it.
Because that's not reasonable. And I hate saying that because I am there. So ultimately, my fight wasn't on the front lines, except that it kind of was, but it was more to give voice. Like I have another talent as a musician. There's a certain amount of technological know-how that you've learned. Part of that is to record a voice, right? To record an instrument, to record an instance of the world that generally tried to be beautiful or meaningful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, not necessarily because people like different kinds of music, whatever. But my point is, I had a fight that I could offer that didn't require me to scream. And it just was my phone. I have a personality. We've met.
Yeah.
And so what I could do is add my voice through video and audio, let's be honest, of what was happening and happening immediately. So ultimately, I showed up this next day. So remember, so George Floyd is killed. People are down 30th in Chicago.
Yeah.
You know me. We are very similar. I'm in my room, hands just what I don't know what to do because I want to stand down there and I want to scream because it was wrong. It was so wrong. It was just 9.5 minutes. It's tough, man. Like what the hell? And so I brought my phone down and I was like, I gotta go do something. I don't know what to do. And I don't go right away. I'm sitting at home, just sitting there, goosebumps going, what's going on? And then I got text messages. Everybody headed down to precinct 3.
Wow.
Uh-oh. It's time to go. I gotta go. Don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know I literally was just phone in hand. Let me show you. It was just this case on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay. It's this very case too. That's not a lie. Like it's still up together. It's pretty beat up, but I held it and I talked to people who were watching, and I filmed 2 days straight of the police antagonizing and creating the atmosphere that ultimately led to the police station burning.
Wow. And by the way, do you know that at that time I wrote a song about it, and I used images from my friend Matt, one of my friends in Minnesota. He sent me all those pictures and videos that he took, and I wrote a song about it that's on my website. I'll share that with you.
I would love to see that, because what happened the first day though, and this is where, okay, so again, we have a very similar path, but one of the things that I've always, part of my path is very different, I think, is that I'm an atheist. I am not an angry, bitter one. I have a very big heart and I will give. This is, I perform service without a religious context. But there's a moment where I will tell you that I had the universe tell me that you have to keep doing this because you're damned good at it. And on that first day, and I don't know if you knew this, I'm the man who filmed Umbrella Man.
Umbrella Man. Wait. Explain to me again. How, just because I know I saw so much that time. What was that?
So that is a guy who wore a gas mask and had a helmet, or not helmet, an umbrella. And he took a hammer to the windows at AutoZone. And it spread like wildfire. Wow. It was millions of views. I am still multi-millions of views into my first day.
Wow.
And I woke up the next morning and my phone had blown up. Okay.
Literally.
Well, and I say morning, it was probably, so I probably didn't get home until 3 or 4 in the morning. So I probably didn't wake up until 2.
Yeah.
And all I'm seeing is just like interview requests first and foremost. But just these tick marks of people like your video, people talked it on Twitter, and you're going, I can't catch up. What's going on? I didn't know I had filmed Umbrella Man.
Wow.
I did. I remember it, but because of all the craziness, it didn't stick out. The police were attacking, right? Like, what?
You know what? As I listen to your story, and by the way, thank you for your vulnerability and just being honest about this. I see two of us, and we talked about this conversation being 2 cousins, 2 Americas. I say 2 of us we share one thing in common. We don't look like what we really are. So for example, I look at you And as you said earlier, you look like a big tough guy who's, you know, big tough white guy who's ready to
Yeah,
engage.
yeah, I do. I absolutely do, and I
And
recognize that.
with your
So yeah,
beard and everything. And yet your views, you love people, you love the world. Your views are 100% in harmony with differences. You know, you've got me as your cousin, you've got your sister who's Korean, you've got all kinds
yep,
of diversity in your family and in
yeah,
yourself.
absolutely.
And me, on the other hand, I also don't look like what I really am. When I'm in my car and I'm driving down the street, I look like just another brother. And if I
You
get
do. Yeah,
unlucky, if I get unlucky and I get stopped at a gas, at a stoplight for some reason, my PhD is not going to help me.
there's
Nothing
no
is going to
shield,
help
right?
me. Yeah, if the guy doesn't like me, or the woman who's the police officer, if I do something weird, my hands aren't up the right way or something, that's it. So I struggle because I know I'm not, running around trying to be a criminal. I'm just a black guy. And can that just be okay? Can you learn who I am and my character and not the way I look? Just like you look tough, but I know you. You're a musician. You're a creator.
Yeah,
You're a speaker. You're a preacher.
yeah. I don't destroy things. I build them,
Yeah,
right? Like I
exactly.
create. Yeah, that is what I wanted, and it hurts because everything I saw around me was just falling, and you couldn't pick it back up, right? Like that was the whole thing. Is like the fight we were fighting, the fight that you fight, and again, people I hear a lot. Again, a lot of stuff gets said out there. I take it with a grain of salt because I understand that there's anger. Um, I don't have a racial component, right? Like this is nothing, but I do recognize that you might have a problem, even though you and I are very similar in that we don't give two craps about your skin color. We don't. I don't care.
Yeah, we don't.
It's if you're a good person, you're a good person. I don't
We're lucky
care.
that way. We don't know how to care because all our lives we've been integrated, right?
We've never. But again, familiarity, right,
Yeah,
breeds understanding.
yeah,
I never had to have that because it's like learning an instrument when you're a kid. It's easier to learn when you're a kid because now I can play all these things and I don't have to go through the pain of learning it.
yeah,
Where everybody now has to have that thing driven out of them for them to understand a little bit about compassion, and that the life of a black family in Minneapolis who has to have the conversation with their kids. Okay, in my
yeah,
household, that's the birds and the bees. Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
simple. It's not about how to survive an interaction with a police officer. It's not about being submissive or to do nothing, to to the yes sir no, like there's a different conversation that our families have, and I know it. I know that I've actually witnessed that conversation.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I've done that with my son, and I have three kids. I have a 20-year-old, a 15-year-old, both girls, and then I have a 12-year-old son, and we've had these conversations. I want to ask you about the hot topic of today, which is
Please.
institutional racism. There are some people who say it doesn't exist, and majority of those people are on Fox News. Then there's a bunch of
Fox
people.
Entertainment. Fox
Yeah.
Entertainment.
Then there's another bunch of people on this side who swear by it. And I'm going to be the first vulnerable one here. I'm going to put my feelings on the table. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. Now, I told you earlier, I see the world in terms of tribalism, not racism. What I mean by that is I don't blame anybody who's white for racism. I
No.
blame anybody who's black or white for tribalism, because that's really what it is.
Yes.
We can actually look beyond the color and we just see, hey, this is my family, these are my culture, my people, and that's yours. That's what it really is. But let me tell you my opinion about institutional racism, and this is where I'm going to get very, very honest with you, Brad.
I
I
You're about
have
to see me cry, just so we're clear.
well,
There's going to
well,
be a conversation we have today. So I appreciate you said you appreciate my vulnerability. You're about
yeah,
to understand a little bit about it. So I
yeah,
appreciate that you can do the same. So thank
yeah.
you.
No, I'm gonna be very, very honest, and I do not talk about this in public, but I'm gonna do it because this conversation warrants this kind
We,
of honesty. Yeah.
we have to
So
talk.
here's what I believe about institutional racism, okay, or tribalism or whatever. I've had a boss who told me very recently that if I had just played the right team cards, I would be a multimillionaire today. Right now, he himself is a multi-millionaire CEO at a big company. I used to work there. He hired me. I could have been that guy, but I didn't get along. Now, let me tell you what my boss, because I had a boss right under him. Boss told me once, Pele, you know what's wrong with you? You think you're just like everybody else. You show up in meetings and you talk, you say what you feel. You don't realize you're a black guy. This is what my boss told me. And of course, I quit that job because I couldn't get along with people who looked at me and felt I didn't have a right to speak. But these guys, they're all multimillionaires. They're all, of course, white. And to a person, I bet you go ask any of them, what do you remember the most about that Pele guy?
He's black.
Not one of them will tell you that I wasn't competent in my job. Not one of them will tell you I was a bad person, that I was hurting anybody. So why couldn't you guys bring this guy along in your success? I wasn't part of the in club. And the only reason is the institutional tribalism that exists in big companies. I could never break that ceiling. So I'm being honest with you. I'm not a complainer. I'm not a complainer. I don't go around saying, oh, I mean, hey, we've had Obama. Come on. I mean, some people get past all this. I get it. But for anyone who thinks it's not true, I'm telling you right now that I am evidence. After PhDs, after all kinds of things I've done with the two bare hands that I've achieved in this lifetime, I can tell you, if it weren't for institutional tribalism, I would be somewhere else right now. That's it.
Okay, so we're going to jump ahead just a second, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something very goofy. This is live, right? Like we are not editing this. So I'm going to literally step away for 5 seconds and I'm going to grab something because this is what you just told me is I'm going to tell you about a story that I just went through up in Brooklyn Center. Okay.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
All right. Now, for anyone listening, while Brad is gone, I want to remind you, I haven't spoken to my cousin Brad in years. We're talking close to 15 or more years. But this guy who's now 6'2", that's my little cousin Brad. I used to grab him by the neck and we could hang out and we'd go on trips when we were young. We'd ride bikes. I lived in their house in Apple Valley, Minnesota.
Where we are right now.
Where you
I'm 5 blocks from there.
Exactly. I lived there for more than months. It felt like a couple years.
I know you lived with me. How young was I, right? Like
we lived, I think I had a room in the basement. First I had a room upstairs and then I was like, I got to do a music studio. So Uncle Fred let me set up my little music stuff in the basement. And dude, this is my family we're talking to. And yet here we are, vastly different backgrounds, but we are able to see the humanity in what's happening in America the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. It sucks because a lot of, like, even every day we don't think about that division. At least you and I, like we don't see that division. We deal with it when it hits, but it's not something that we're activists about, right?
I'm not an activist.
No, well, and here's the thing is, I'm going to tell you, Pele, I am now, but in my way. Okay, this is. I had to find my way. So my way is this.
Ooh, what is that?
That is my press pass. Okay. Mm-hmm. This identifies me to police so that if I get pulled over, if I am in the middle of a protest, they're supposed to leave me alone.
Ooh, interesting.
Because now I'm going to say a couple things that sound like I'm an extremist crazy guy. I'm not. Okay, I want to make sure that we're clear. Mm-hmm. But because of what I've been doing, I've come to realize a couple things in my research, and that press pass and myself while wearing it are literally the physical embodiment of the First Amendment. I'm a walking amendment of the Constitution. Okay. And this becomes important because not my skin color, okay, but that what we're dealing with is not just tribal, it is the rights of US citizens and humans alike.
Yeah.
And the police for hundreds of years, but specifically my fight here, the police have been taking the rights of people away. And again, I'm not an extremist, but if you're going to call this what it is,
yeah,
this thing is supposed to protect me. But I'm also a white guy with a press pass. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we were at a church in Brooklyn Center all week, first week of this thing. And they let all the press in. They were helping it in coffee afterwards because it's exhausting. I just had back surgery, by the way, like 3 weeks ago. I'm still taking like muscle relaxants just to walk.
Yeah.
But protesters who are church members were coming to the church, and a lot of them were people of color. And one of them was homeless and was living out of his vehicle. But the police followed him into the church parking lot, which, let's be perfectly honest, there's some shit there that, oh, dang it, I tried not to do it.
No, that's okay.
Sorry.
There's some stuff there. There's some stuff there.
Forgive me the one. Yeah. And they followed him in, but then all the press and the pastors literally just walked up to the cops, and there was no way that they were going to get through that without the world knowing what was happening. So they left him alone. Somebody stationed himself in front of the vehicle because the vehicle was not legal. So we actually had to create a plan where the white guy with the press pass was going to convoy with this whole thing. We were going to have people up front and back, where the white guy with the press pass was going to get the vehicle out of there, because you know what? You're not going to get stopped. And if you do get stopped, you're going to wave your badge. Okay. And you're going to help save the situation, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
And let's be perfectly honest. The badge is one thing. My skin color is the other. And if we're going to be, again, very perfectly honest, this badge didn't always work either. So, and we're going to get there. I know this because we have a whole year of garbage with which to deal with. So this thing is a beauty, like, it's my shield, but it's also a comfort. Like, it's my comfort blanket. Like, yeah. I have a right to stand here, not because I'm a white man, but because I'm here to document your behavior. Okay. Wow. I have to. Like, they kept trying to get press out of there. So but that's now. If we're going to Spaceballs, that's now. When will now be that? When will then be now? No. We still have George Floyd riots. Think about that, right? Yeah. We could probably spend weeks talking about everything I went through, right? Yeah. The biggest thing is, and I'm going to tell you, like, you want vulnerable, and I appreciate that, because I will tell you that my 3.5 weeks, okay, front lines, and there's no better way of saying front lines. I was tear gassed. I was in a standoff with 500 military members and state troopers, me and 2 other guys, press members, standoff. Wow. I had to look into my phone knowing that Zoe, my daughter, was watching, because she had a code and a person she's supposed to call for my campaign. The guys were just helping out. If something happened to me, she knew who she had. I'm going to tear up. Yeah. I had to tell my daughter, hey, listen, I love you. I don't know what's about to happen. Get ready to call Max.
You know, Brad, I want you to be safe. I think, no, seriously, I'm saying this very, very, look, I hope that you stay safe out there, because this thing is like a tinderbox, something that's ready to explode. I don't know what's going to happen next in Minnesota. In fact, I was going to say, as we wrap up, right, as we kind of wrap up our conversation, what can we talk about regarding the future? I mean, I see you in the short time we've just talked, and I think both of us, I see us as the future. Why? Because both of us have a way of divorcing our what we see about the situation from any pre sort of ordained feelings, the way people say, oh, that's racism. Oh, no, 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 that's this. And I mean, we just look at people. Let's talk about the future. How can we look? Let's imagine Uncle Fred, Aunt Bobby, your parents, my mom, Junie, they're watching this and they want to know, okay, so what are we going to do for the future? Maybe we should talk about the future, our families that we're going to leave behind. How can we make a difference? That's really what I want to say. How can we help other people see the world as Brad does and as I do, which I believe is neutral. We see things neutral.
No, you're right. You're right. Like, I judge a situation based on the actions of what the situation is, right? Like, I don't care. I don't have a preconceived. That's not true. I probably have some preconceived notions that we all have biases, right?
Yeah.
And they could be little. It could be just, I don't like green Skittles, right? It's just a thing. It's so they're there. But here's the thing. The future is very dark to me, and I want to be positive and honest. And I understand a lot of what law enforcement goes through, and that they see all this negativity, and that will jade you, right? Like being on the front lines and being shot at. I had 2 flashbangs go off. Like, how do you get positivity? You have no idea. PTSD is a real thing. I have been shot by the police multiple times. Zoe was with me just a few days ago when it was supposed to be peaceful, and the police showed up and the flashbang went off again near her. Wow. And do you want to see an angry fat man? Okay. Because ultimately I'm here for my family and your family. Like, I'm here to keep our children alive and to make better decisions. So this is a very, and again, I told you I'm an atheist, but there's this thing that I learned from some Christians about, if you say that you should do something, it's hard for people to take it as anything but just words, farted on the wind. Yeah. But if I live that way, if I go to 38th in Chicago and I get outside my comfort zone, things change. And I am not a protester. I'm a press member. I am just showing what's true. And do you know what happens now? I get calls from people in that community, and I mean that physical location, that say, Brad, we have a thing going on. Could you come down here, please? It's not white people calling me, right? It is people who know that people like me will help change this thing. And it's not, again, not a color thing, but I care about the truth and I care about the families, and I want everybody to go home at night. But sometimes it takes people, again, like me, who are willing to take a shot from the police, to get tear gassed, and to finally stand and get out of my comfort zone. And our future will not come without people getting out of their comfort zones. And they have to meet the other tribes. They have to be able to go, what's different? What's really different between you and me, Pele? Honestly, what's the real difference?
Yeah, we're both musicians. We both come from Minnesota.
Right? You see where I'm going? Like, think about this. There's one artificial distinction between the two of us.
Yeah, it's color. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That ultimately, we want good food. We want to make sure our kids can go to school.
Hey, did you eat some African soup at my house once in Lakeville?
Dude, and I had to do it with my hands. Oh yeah, you made that for me.
I made you eat that stuff with your hands, didn't I?
Oh, it's so good. Well, because that's how you, dude. Again, whenever I go places, I want to eat where locals eat. I don't give 2 craps about what your McDonald's tastes like, right? Screw that. That's not how it works. And how do I know more about you? Well, I eat like what you eat. I eat with my hands. I eat the meals that you make. And I know what you feel like when you feel like having a comfort food from home.
Yeah.
And when you come to my place, I'll make you a brisket. I'll make you pork shoulder. Like, you see, like, it's a very different thing, but it's my comfort zone. I'll make you pierogies by hand. But food is like this great connector. And it sounds funny, but familiarity.
Yeah.
And that's what
How
it
did
is.
you say it? You said familiarity breeds what?
Understanding.
Understanding. Yeah, because it sounds like it should go into contempt, but it's actually understanding.
You're right.
Brad, I want to give you some kudos, and I also want to very seriously warn you. Now, here's where I'm going to bring my African big brother type talk. Okay. I do believe that the world will only change when people who look like you do what you do, which is you stand up for what you believe. And I believe that's where change will come from. But here's my concern. I don't want to come to a funeral. I want you to be safe. Please do that for your family. And I'm part of that family.
I know you are.
So is Zoe, and so is your entire family. You've got a rich family around you. You're a centerpiece. You are a source. And so please be careful with your life. Now, here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to admit one thing. I'm not going to do anything near what you do.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I know my place.
Yeah.
I hate to be honest with you. Number one, look, I believe that, for example, I'll give you an example that might be a little bit weird, but I believe that it's a good idea to go to Mars, for example.
Absolutely.
But here's the problem. Here's the problem. Not everybody is NASA. Okay. If you're not NASA, don't try to go to Mars. Just chill, because you don't have the equipment, you don't have the knowledge, and so on. That's how I see myself.
But you can still support NASA.
You can support NASA. Exactly. Yeah. So I see myself as a supporter of people who are more vocal like you. Now, I support by doing the best I can, taking care of my little family.
Absolutely.
And supporting as we're doing right now. But I'm going to be honest with you right now. I'm 55 years old. I'm going to be 56 this year.
Yep.
I can't even run from here to the end of the block without going crazy. So to be honest with you, I'm not going to be in the forefront. So if you are going to be in the forefront, I'm just asking you, please be safe. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so my goal is to get everybody home safe. Okay. But I have come to recognize that my comfort zone is coming home. And I love my family. Dude, listen, I'm out there because of my family, right? We've talked about family here. And I am safe as I can be. The reality is, though, in the last 2 weeks, 2 flashbangs, a couple batons, and a couple nights where I might have been in jail for a weekend.
Wow.
Even though I was wearing
your press pass,
which is the physical embodiment of the First Amendment, okay, which guarantees me access. I witnessed them attacking press. I witnessed them violently arresting protesters. My comfort zone and what reality to make change don't always meet. So I will make a promise to you. I will be as safe as I can, but I will never start anything. And I will be a martyr if I have to be, because ultimately there has to be a change. And if somebody can see me standing up and everybody else who was with me standing up, and again, I have video of a here, and I know we have to close up, and I'm sorry, but
yeah,
I have video, and I should post this here soon, of this younger, very young black man who was standing against the fence, and there are 4 or 5 cops shooting him with pepper pellets while spraying him with mace or pepper spray, and they're launching 44 millimeter less lethal rounds. And he is standing there, hands up. Oh God, I'm gonna like, this was unbelievably powerful because he wasn't doing anything, right? And the bravery it took to stand there and to prove it is such a powerful moment that it's like, I can't move. Yeah. I'm not moving. I will not move. And for fun, I like doing this. I like explaining this to people because they can relate. If you saw Captain America, Winter Soldier, there's a funeral scene where Agent, the gal is talking about her aunt, and she tells a story about sometimes you have to stand in the river and say, no, you move.
Yeah. You know, talking about movies,
yeah.
my favorite, I have a couple of favorite movies. One of them is Braveheart.
Yeah.
Another one is Amistad. And
I have not seen that yet.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
I gotta watch that.
Have to go watch Amistad. Like, that's my gift to my cousin. Is there a movie recommendation? Okay,
absolutely.
But you know what I love about Braveheart is the fact that a man would stand for what he believes and fight to the death. And Brad, I have to tell you, as I said earlier, we don't all have the same skills. But I can be honest and I can respect people who can do that. So I see you as the Braveheart.
I feel like it. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, I see you as the Braveheart. And I want you to know I'm with you in spirit and I'm supportive. Now, in the other movie, Amistad, the second movie that's my favorite, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, but the signature line, the signature line in that movie was when Cinque, the slave, who did not know how to speak English, was shouting in the courtroom while they were trying to prosecute them. And he was saying what he learned of English. And it was, give us free. And he said it over and over, give us free. Over and over, give us free. And it was like, you can't, dude, I'm sorry if we're talking a lot about crying, but I literally just sat down and cried. I paused the movie, said, give me a second, gotta get this out. I cried real good, came back, cried again. That scene was so powerful for me. And I think that's what's happening now. But my role in all of this, and by the way, the song I was going to tell you, it's called Give Us Freedom.
Thank you. See, that's a beautiful, that's great.
That song came from that. But I see my role, I'm the storyteller. I'm the guy who sits back and I write the songs and I tell the stories, but you're the guy who fights, and you have my deepest love and respect for being who you are. And don't apologize for it, but just please be safe.
I promise you, again, I will do everything I can. My goal is to come home. Okay.
Yeah.
And in fact, because I know that we are hitting our time, I think we should do this again, because I think there's some other conversations we should have.
Yeah.
But I'm going to bring, watch this. Hey, Zoe. I'm going to bring my daughter in. So my daughter has watched every second of my time. Zoe, can you grab her real quick? Sorry. Because she watched every second.
Yeah.
She went through everything that I did, right? And I think that if we're going to end this and you want to talk about the future, my daughter, who's built like my wife, thankfully, who has all of my good traits and not many of my bad ones, learned something up there. And it wasn't shocking and painful and sad. It was more of this thing where she didn't understand what the police were doing. And what?
Is she shy?
Nope. We're not going to. She's in the bathroom.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
We'll forget. Okay. So the future, really, and again, live, I apologize. But the reality is that I can only do this for so much longer, right? But it's people like her who actually physically then went down and saw the absurdity of the actions of the people who are supposed to be protecting and serving us, who are going to make big changes, big changes that you and I talk about, right? the ones that we fight to see made. And it's going to be those 16-year-olds, right? It's going to be the girls like her, the men like her who go, what are you doing? And that's absolutely batshit crazy. Damn, 2, 3, dang it, I'm trying. But again, so if we want to leave on the future on this conversation, that's the kind of people who have learned to walk and make ripples in the sand that resonate, right? That will change things. And my biggest thing, and I tell people this now when I'm out there, I talk to them, is that if you're going to stand up, you better walk and shake the world as you move, because they should be okay. I'm going to earn you, that you should make them damn scared of what you have to bring, which is just honesty and a change that should scare those tribalists. You know what I mean? Like, this is important. Oh, I got her.
Is she coming?
Yep, she's coming. So
while she's coming, can I say something that'll surprise you?
No, please. I would love to hear it. Come on.
Let me just say, oh, okay. As she's right there, I'm going to say something about her dad. This is interesting. Brad, I think I'm older than you by about 10 years.
10 years, yep.
So I'm going to continue until we're 90 or something. I'm going to keep pulling my African card on you as your senior brother.
Yes.
And I want you to know that I am almost to tears, so proud of you. I haven't spoken to you in close to 20 years, and this is the person you've become. I'm so proud of you, and I want you to know that. Okay, now let's talk about the future.
I appreciate that. So, Zoe, I wanted to end this by showing what my legacy is going to be. And I know it sounds cheesy. We all have these big words, but when you're in the middle of a war, because that's really what it was a war.
That's what yeah.
We have to leave something on this world that will make change. And this is mine. She can be shy. She's not going to talk a lot. She doesn't like being around on camera. She will giggle a little bit.
And she does look like she does look like her mother. You're right.
Thankfully, like I said, I would be an ugly woman. But it's one of those things where you had an experience where you got to feel what you only saw before. And it shook you a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when it was the day after, I think. Yeah, it was the day after where I told you, if you're going to walk, you shake the world as you walk and you make people afraid of you. It's not to create fear in that bad sense, but it's fear in the people who are trying to do harm. And if you walk that way, you're going to make enemies, but you're going to have the world behind you. And the world should shake when people like that step into the game, onto the field. And the results of what I'm doing now won't manifest until this one walks out on the field. And that's when the true power of what we have as parents and as fathers and as people trying to do something can only offer this, right? Like that's it. That's all we have. And I will gladly fight now to watch what happens when that one takes the field. I'm kind of afraid, to be honest. Like, geez. So yeah, if that makes sense. It sounds cheesy, and I apologize, but there's no other way to go through what I'm doing.
Yeah. To
take a flashbang to the leg to do all these things without knowing that your legacy is going to go through and she'll clean up for you.
Yeah. No, we're at the forefront of our families, and that's good. That's good enough. We keep speaking the truth, and for me, that's good enough. That may be all I can do. And so, thank you.
That's actually, and you know what? And I think we should call this real quick here. And again, I think we have to have this conversation. And I'm going to embarrass her a little bit because you want to know where the impetus for this whole thing was her, actually. She was younger. And I think about this every time I'm up there. She does this. I like embarrassing her. It's a dad's job. It's in the contract. She was probably 11 or 12, and I was yelling and screaming about the politics. I was just angry. I can't stand it. I think we were watching an election, a terrible, terrible election.
Yeah.
And she looked at me and says, "Can't you do something about that?" Like, yes, And so it's fighting time, right? Like, and again, that fight has manifested in different ways since then. But now I think about it when I'm out there is like, Daddy, can you do something about that? Yep. Now I go. So the reason I'm out there getting shot at is because of her, and I'm going to guilt the crap out of her. No, I'm kidding. No, the fight again, you have to have a motivation. It's my family. And she said, Dad, can you do something? And if I have that ability, maybe I have the responsibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just
well, we will have this conversation again. And I want to thank you so much for calling me up this morning, actually.
Yeah, this morning.
And just getting this to happen, because we need this conversation. People need to see that you could have two cousins who look very different from each other, who come from very different backgrounds, and yet we can see the world as it is, which is we're all people.
That's all it is.
We're just people, and we can't let tribalism and other things get in the way of just being people and being good to each other. So let's wrap up. Nice to meet you, Zoe. All right.
She's the driver now. She drives.
Ooh, yeah. You know what's funny? My 15-year-old has been making us teach her how to drive. Everybody, how come you guys want to drive so much?
Dude, I'd bring her up to the cabin since she was 12, and so I'd let her drive up at the cabin. So I was working on that one. I'm just saying, not officially, but no, but you're right, dude. Isn't that insane? Like, you want to know how I feel old? It's not the gray hair, right? It's none of that. I have a kid who graduated high school and now a driver, and it makes me feel so freaking old. So yeah, man, no, it's great. I love it. So again, we're kind of in the same situation. Even funny because our kids are about the same ages, relatively, and it's so insane. Exactly. I love it because again, the parallel nature of who we are. We've been walking the same path. You know that, right?
For years. Oh yeah. Music. Just now we're both podcast hosts.
Yeah, right.
All kinds of stuff. If you ever want to come to the South, your house is in Austin, right here. So
we want to move out there, right?
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
We're ending, and I know this. I will end it on this one. We've been looking at places to move that's not cold.
Yeah.
As you get older, cold makes you hurt
more. Yeah, that's why we left Minnesota. I get.
It is frustrating. And again, every night I've been out, I've been like, I'd come home and I can't feel my fingers or my toes. Yeah. But Austin has great school districts and barbecue. Because again, remember, food is the great.
Yeah, that too.
And it's beautiful, and I want to be able to enjoy my deck and enjoy a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I can do it year round mostly, right? Like I get that there's something, but Austin is hot. It's like that perfect middle ground. It's like that blue island.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well,
Texas.
you know what? Whenever COVID is sort of officially over and you come down here, I'll take you around and I'll show you spots.
Dude, as long as Franklin's Barbecue is on there, I got to go there every 5 years or so. So Franklin's Barbecue, we'll all go get fat for a day. And then, we got to go, man. Like we just got to do some things. So we
got to do a band. We still got to do the band. Done.
So I'm making guitars now.
We got to do the band.
We'll do something. We're going to play something together. All right.
All right.
All right. Hey, thank you. Again, what was the name of your podcast again?
The Profitable Happiness Podcast.
Wonderful. And mine is Watchdog Citizen for video and podcasting. And frankly, our podcast started out of doing what I'm doing. So it was literally my after, like just me decompressing after the thing. It's like just me crying a lot with her.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's insane. Like I feel like this big tough guy, and then I just sit there and cry like a baby. So if you want to hear a big guy like me cry like a baby, go check that out. It'll be fun. So
that's awesome.
So,
that's awesome.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Man. You want to say goodbye?
Bye.